Ondo Finance is bridging TradFi with Web3 by tokenizing real-world assets and bringing them on-chain. In today's video, I would like to give you a deep dive into Ondo Finance. We will break apart their tokenomics, and towards the end of this video, I will share with you my forecast of the protocol's revenue potential and how they can achieve 2 billion revenue plus in a few years. All right, without further ado, let's directly jump into this presentation. Initially, I would like to share with you some background stories of Ondo and just give you some historical context before we unpack their tokenomics, including supply, distribution, and unlocks. Later on, we will take a quick peek at their investors and the various funding rounds they held throughout the protocol's history, before we will take a closer look at the token's utility and their very special zero inflation mechanism. Then I also think it's very key to understand their core product suite, which is composed of three main products, which are stablecoins, which are on-chain treasury funds, and Ondo Global Markets, which are tokenizing real-world assets like stocks and ETFs. So this then sets us up to look into on-chain data to analyze their revenue stream and project future revenue potential of the Ondo Finance protocol. And finally, I would like to conclude this presentation just giving you my general thoughts on the blockchain, sharing some milestones on their roadmap and whether Ondo might be a worthwhile investment or not. All right. So first of all, what is Ondo? Ondo is a decentralized platform for RWA, real-world asset tokenization. So they are basically tokenizing US treasuries, stocks and ETFs, and also stablecoins, which are a tokenized form of real-world dollars. They are bridging, as I said in the introduction, TradFi with crypto by bringing Wall Street on-chain and offering Wall Street products to the entire globe in a fully permissionless manner. And yeah, their three main products are USDY, stablecoin OUSG, tokenized treasury funds, and Ondo Global Markets, but more on that in a second. Quickly, a few words on Ondo's history. So the protocol was founded in 2021 by two former Goldman Sachs employees, and here are the two co-founders, namely Nathan Ellman and Justin Schmidt. So this already tells us that from the very early stages on, they have very good connections with TradFi, as the two co-founders are former employees of Goldman. Only 1 year later, they raised their Series A funding round with 20 millions before they launched their first product in January 2023, which is OUSG, the tokenized treasury fund. And earlier this year, they acquired Jack Zempellin's firm Strangelove, which is a very technical-based blockchain developer firm with roots in Cosmos. So they truly understand how to construct your own chain, which is in Ondo's roadmap. And as well, they acquired Oasis Pro along with their broker-dealer license, which will be key going forward for Ondo. And finally, just 1 month ago in September 2025, Ondo launched their product Ondo Global Markets with 100 plus tokenized stocks and ETFs, which are now available to everyone around the globe. And now let's take a closer look at the Ondo token. So a brief overview. Ondo sits currently at a little bit less than $1 and it has a market cap of $3 billion and the FTV fully diluted valuation of a little bit less than 10 billion. And we see here the circulating supply is roughly 32% of the total supply. So this means Ondo is in its very early stages and only 1/3 of the entire token supply is out there and circulating. That's why there is such a big gap between the current market cap and the fully diluted valuation. Ondo had 3 funding events in their history, and it all started with their seed funding round in August 2021, where they raised $4 million and sold roughly 3% of the entire Ondo supply. And back then, one Ondo token was sold for 1.3 cents at the FTV of 130 million. So investors that invested back then, they're currently sitting at roughly 72x. And here you can see the investors that participated in the seed round, which is Pantera Capital, Coin Fund, Digital Currency, and many others. Then about 1 year later, they raised their Series A funding round, where they raised additional $20 million at a token price of 2 cents and an FTV of 200 million. And in this round, they sold 10% of the entire supply, and investors are currently sitting at a 45x. Again, 𝗪𝗪𝗁 led this round, and other investors like Coinbase Ventures or 𝗪𝗪𝘁 joined the cap table. And then, very cool, just a few months later, Ondo also held a ICO, or like a community sale round on CoinList, where they raised another 10 million. And this raise happened in 2 tranches. In the first tranche, they sold Ondo for 3 cents, which is a very, very good entry price for a community. And the second tranche for 5.5 cents, still super decent valuations. And if you compare it to the current price of a little bit less than $1, you see that a lot of community folks were able to get early into Ondo and sit now on 20 to 30 x's of their initial investment. And in this round, they sold 2% of the entire supply to the community. This community fundraising was one of the most successful fundraising rounds on CoinList, as Ondo was able to onboard 18,000 retail users and give them early access to the Ondo token. And yeah, in total, Ondo raised $35 million, which is a very good safety cushion to keep developing their chain in the years ahead. All right, so here, if we look at the entire Ondo token allocation, we see that here the community sale on CoinList sold 2% of the entire supply, while the previous funding round sold 13% of the entire supply to investors. So this leaves the bigger chunk to ecosystem and community growth. So basically 50% of the entire supply was allocated to future initiatives and the ecosystem growth, which might also go out via airdrops for people that early on use the Ondo products. And then about 1/3 of the supply was allocated to the protocol development, which basically is for the core contributors and team members of Ondo. Cool, so now here we look at the token unlock schedule, which is very important to analyze before we take any major investment decisions. So here we see that we are pretty early in the entire vesting schedule, which will run until 2028. And Ondo doesn't have a linear vesting schedule, but a cliff vesting schedule with yearly unlocks every 12 months. So, and these yearly cliff unlocks will always happen on January 17th. So as you see here, this year in January, the first big unlock happened, and on January 17th, 2026, another big unlock will happen. And these unlocks will continue to happen until January 28th, where the final big unlock for investors and team members will occur. And then there will be one final unlock on January 29th. But this unlock, as you can see here, team members and investors allocation will remain the same. Just the ecosystem tokens will receive their final unlock, but this should not really lead to any sell pressure. And just a quick look at the circulating supply. Roughly 1/3 is circulating and fully unlocked, while 2/3 of the Ondo supply are still locked and vested. Where is Ondo available today? Ondo is listed on all the major centralized exchanges out there, like Binance, Coinbase, Bybit, KuCoin, or HTX. And you can also find the token on decentralized whales on Uniswap. And Ondo is currently a 𝗪𝗫20 token that lives on the Ethereum blockchain, so you can buy it directly on Uniswap as well. And now let's take a look at the Ondo inflation rate, which is set to 0, unlike many other app chains out there. So Ondo has a fixed token supply of 10 billion, and it won't go any higher than that, especially since Ondo is currently a 𝗪𝗫20 token on Ethereum, as I just mentioned before. Of course, there is no real inflation possible. This might change in the future, but I don't think they want to tweak their tokenomics, since Ondo will very soon migrate to their own layer 1 chain built on the Cosmos stack, and therefore also the Ondo token will migrate to its new home. And let's see what will happen with inflation then, but I don't think they will make any major adjustments. And this also means that in the future, as the Ondo chain goes live, Ondo will have its own validator set, and they will validate the chain. So you might ask, hey 𝗬𝗵𝘁, if they have zero inflation, how are they gonna compensate their future validator set? And as they shared in some of their documents, they came up with a very interesting and novel mechanism. So basically, they allow stakers to stake yield-bearing assets to validators. So you can stake your, I don't know, on-chain Apple, on-chain Tesla, or your treasury fund directly to a validator to secure the chain, and the validator will take a very small cut on the rewards that those real-world assets are generating on your behalf. And therefore, Ondo doesn't have to inflate its token. They can just simply incentivize validators with the yield that the assets on Ondo are generating. So I'm super curious to learn more and to see this mechanism play out once Ondo chain goes live. But I'm, let's say, intrigued by this mechanism. And then, of course, there will be transaction fees paid on the Ondo chain that also accrue to the validators. And another cool feature is that on Ondo chain, users will be able to pay for transaction fees in RWAs and also in stablecoins. Cool. Now let's take a look at the Ondo token utility. So first of all, as most proof of stake coins, you can stake your coin and participate in governments. So Ondo stakers, they obtain the right to participate in on-chain governance, and they can have a say in things like parameter changes. Probably they want to increase inflation, probably they want to load the validator set, they want to extend the validator set, they want to increase the block times, or also vote on network upgrades. Second utility is security and staking. Of course, you as a token holder, you can stake the Ondo token and secure the chain, and most likely as the Ondo chain goes live, stakers will also be rewarded by some staking rewards. And finally, this is not set in stone yet, but as regulation becomes more clear, I'm pretty sure that Ondo token holders will participate in the revenue and the fees that the protocol itself generates, either by the protocol paying it out directly to token holders or simply using those revenues to buy back the token and burn it, which implicitly also, or which indirectly also benefits Ondo token holders. Now that we've covered the tokenomics, let's take a closer look at Ondo's product suite. So what has Ondo to offer and what makes it so unique? And as I mentioned before, they have three major products. The first one is USDY, which is their own native stablecoin that is fully backed by physical dollars. Then the second product is OUSG, which is nothing else than tokenized treasury funds. And finally, their third product, which just went live 1 month ago, are Ondo Global Markets, which offers tokenized stocks and ETFs to users across the world. All right, let's go step by step through those. USDY, as mentioned before, is Ondo's yield-bearing stablecoin, fully backed by the interest earned from short-term US Treasury bonds and bank deposits. It's not a typical stablecoin that always stays at the value of $1, but it accumulates the rewards. And as you can see over here, it started out with $1 and it currently trades at $1.1. And the current API that goes directly to holders is 4%. And the TVL of this token is a little bit south of 700 million. And one caveat here, currently USDY is only accessible to non-US individuals and organizations, and the coin is live on 8 different blockchains on Ethereum, Mantle, Solana, Sui, Aptos, Noble, Arbitrum, and Stellar. Their second product, OUSG, is a short-term US Treasury funds that holds US Treasury notes that gives on-chain investors exposure to short-term US Treasuries. And currently this product pays a yield of 4.03% and has a TVL of $771 million. And it's available on 3 chains, Ethereum, Polygon, Solana, and XRPL, the XRP ledger. And this fund is available to all investors. And finally, their arguably most novel and innovative product is Ondo Global Markets, which is that platform that tokenizes US stocks and ETFs and brings them fully on-chain. And it launched this September with 100 plus tokenized stocks and ETFs. All the stocks that are displayed here and more are one-to-one backed by the original securities held by Ondo itself, which ensures that they will always maintain their peg. And Ondo also worked on several integrations, so their on-chain stocks are now available also on Ledger Live or on Gate.io and many other external parties. And for now, those product offerings are not available for US investors, but that might change very soon. And because this feature just rolled out pretty recently, those on-chain stocks are only available on Ethereum and of course those third-party contractors like Ledger Live or Gate.io, but very soon Ondo Global Markets will roll out to Solana, BNB chain, many others, as well as Ondo chain, their own native chain, the moment it goes live. And here just a quick overview about like the benefits and the perks of holding on-chain stocks. If you compare it to traditional brokers, of course, they are available 24/7, they're transferable across accounts and chains super easily, they're compatible with DeFi, and it's pretty straightforward to access them. And what Ondo brings to the table compared to other prior versions of tokenized stocks, Ondo stocks have that very strong investor protection since they are really one-to-one backed by the underlying security, enforceable redemption rights, instant mints and redemption, and it just has better liquidity as Ondo Finance has ties to other big financial players and also the US government and regulators out there. Still, we are in very early phases, and here you see a screenshot of Apple On, which is the tokenized form of the Apple stock that lives on Ondo, and it has currently a market cap of 2.6 million with a trading volume a little bit north of 5 million, which is not mind-boggling, but remember, this is just one stock out of 100 plus stocks that they tokenized, and Ondo chain is not live. They will soon expand to Solana. So I foresee a very steep growth and acceleration for on-chain stocks, especially as they give access to folks from outside the US that never really had access to the US stock markets. Now that we know their three main products, the stablecoins, the treasury funds, and the on-chain stocks, let's see how much TVL they already generated. So over here we see that the treasury fund OUSG is the most issued Ondo RWA, and it's roughly 44% of their entire TVL. On the second place, we have the USDY stablecoin, which accounts roughly for 38% of the total TVL of Ondo assets. And then you see here, those are all individual on-chain stocks or ETFs like SPY on, which is the S&P 500. Here we have the QQQ, which is the NASDAQ, DLT, and so on and so forth. And basically on-chain stocks and ETFs account for 18-19% of total assets issued via Ondo, and in total they have a TVL of 1.74 billion. Over here we see the chart that displays the entire TVL, and we just see this is staggering growth over the past 1.5 years. So if we kick it off in 2024, over the last 1.5 years, the TVL on Ondo grew by 800%. And if we take a second snapshot at the start of this year, then we see that year to date, the TVL on Ondo grew more than 1 billion and is up 184%. And this very chart here will be key to understand and to observe going forward, especially with regards to Ondo protocol revenue, because the more tokens that they issue, the more RWAs that are backed by the Ondo blockchain, the higher the revenue for them will be. And here just another chart. Currently, most of Ondo assets live on the Ethereum blockchain, like roughly 1.4 billion are circulating on the Ethereum layer 1, while Solana has another 250 million, and the rest is just distributed across other chains like XRPL, Mantle, Sui, Noble, or Arbitrum. And soon, as the Ondo chain goes live, I'm pretty sure that we will see another massive uptick in this chart here, because they very clearly have the incentive to keep their issued assets on their own chain and just overall grow their market and TVL. And now let's take a look into Ondo protocol revenue. So as I just mentioned, the more assets that are issued via Ondo, the more real-world assets or TVL move on-chain, the more revenue Ondo will generate, because they collect a small fee on every tokenized asset. So when it comes to their stablecoin USDY, they collect 10 to 30 bips on the T-bill yield that the stablecoins are generating, plus a 20 bips fee when those stablecoins are redeemed. And for their treasury fund product, they take a 15% management fee plus another 15% in fund expenses. And for Ondo GM, Ondo Global Markets, the revenue mechanism has still to be determined. It's a little bit more tricky in this instance, since they cannot simply collect a management fee or just take a cut of the yield that the underlying asset generates. But I suppose that they can charge a small swap fee or a mint redemption fee or integration fee, as their on-chain stocks are integrated across various platforms like Ledger Live or also centralized exchanges. But yeah, let's take a closer look at their revenue numbers. So currently over here we see that the protocol generates 1.11 million in weekly fees. So this is basically all the assets that are held by Ondo products and the cash flow that is generated on top of it. But those fees are mostly redistributed to the holders of their stablecoin or their treasury product. And Ondo itself takes a cut, like 0.3-0.5% of all of these fees generated. So if we do some quick math, we can see that currently Ondo protocol makes a revenue of $33,000 a week, and that would come up to closely 140K a month and a yearly revenue of 1.65 million. But yeah, let's take a closer look. I prepared this spreadsheet here where I forecasted the revenue for USDY and OUSG. So I just took the current numbers as of October 2025. We see here their stablecoin and the treasury fund. I inserted their TVL and the API those assets are currently earning. And then Ondo will take a taker fee of 0.3%, not based on this, but based on the entire TVL. Let's say their entire TVL generates 4% of API, but in reality, those funds would generate 4.3% APY. So they take that small cut that goes into their coffers, and 4.3% go directly to investors. And this would give us a yearly revenue of 4.4 million, just the way it is right now with no future growth. And now if we go through our moderate case, which assumes a 27x in TVL on Ondo, but I also considered going forward that interest rates might come down, therefore their margin shrinks a little bit. So I reduced the taker fees, but that would give us 100 million in annual revenues for the protocol. And moving on to the bull case, like here for the bull case, my assumptions are, which are like general forecasts, that RWAs and their market cap will hit 20 trillion by 2030. And then I suppose that Ondo will take a 5% market share of these 20 trillion, which would be roughly 1 billion. And again, a lower take fee as interest rates might go down even further. But of course, like you can play around with these numbers here for yourself and, I don't know, adjust them based on your macroeconomic forecasts. But these numbers would give us 2.6 billion in annual revenue for Ondo, which is massive. And if you apply a 30 revenue multiple to this revenue, then you could see that Ondo could easily trade at 60, 70 plus billion FTV. This multiple is solely based on Hyperliquid, which already like generates these kind of numbers, and they're trading at a 30 multiple as well. And now let's take a closer look at Ondo GM, the global markets, where forecasting revenue is slightly more difficult since the product just went live 1 month ago, and we don't really know how they will generate yield on it. But based on my assumptions, they have 3-4 ways to generate protocol revenue on top of this product. So they can basically charge a taker fee on all the swaps that are happening on the Ondo chain itself. In order to buy these stocks, you have to swap them somewhere, either on an external venue or on Ondo chain itself. So I suppose that if you swap or buy the stocks, Apple, Tesla, whatever, on Ondo, they will take a 10 bips fee. And if you swap them on external parties, like directly on Ledger or on Gate.io, on other centralized exchanges or DeFi protocol, then they will take like 1/4 of that fee, which is 0.25%. And as you see at the current numbers, this is not a lot of revenue, and it would generate 290K of yearly revenue. But as we know, this product just launched 1 month ago with 100 plus markets, and by the end of the year they're aiming at 100K live markets. And in this forecast I considered 1K live markets with a revenue multiplier of 25 based on the current data. And of course the taker fees also go down slightly the more volume they generate, because they're also competing with other on-chain tokenized stock providers. So I think the taker rates or the margins will shrink over time, but this gives us another 55 billion revenue. And now let's take a short look into the bull case. Again, decreased margins, but here the key assumption is that Ondo will capture 5% of the daily volume of the US stock market, which is like a mind-blowing number. When I looked it up, it's $400 billion are traded every single day on the US stock market. And my assumption is that going forward, more and more of those financial transactions will happen on-chain. And if Ondo were able to capture 5% of this volume, only Ondo Global Markets could generate north of 2 billion annual revenue. So if we add together the revenue of Ondo GM, 2 billion, plus like the bull case here, 2.6 billion for USDY, OUSG, then Ondo could generate north of 4 billion up to 5 billion revenue in the not too distant future. Of course, this is a bull case. Make your own assumptions, own forecasts. This is just based on my napkin math, but you see those numbers can add up pretty fast. And in markets where there is a lot of revenue to be captured, there are of course also lots of competitors. So for USDY, their stablecoin product, the main competitors are of course the Circles of this world, Tether, but also Ethena with USDE. Those, I would put them into the not yield bearing bucket, and let's see how this continues, because we generally see a trend where stablecoins have to share their yield with the underlying protocol or the chain. Hence the emergence of yield bearing stablecoins like USDE or Sky, and over here we have USDA from Agora. On the tokenized treasury fund side, OUSG is competing with heavyweights like BlackRock that just entered the arena a few months ago with their BUIDL fund, and also Franklin Templeton announced a new fund where they will tokenize treasuries and as well as Superstate. And on the tokenized stock side of things, there are heavy hitters like Xstocks that went live on Solana just a few months ago, Securitize, which is also partnering with Ethena to launch their very own chain to tokenize or bring real world assets on chain. We have Bloom Network, Mantra, or Injective. So competition is definitely very fierce in this market sector. As we are about to wrap up this presentation, let's take a short look at their roadmap and future catalysts for Ondo Finance. So the first one, of course, is the launch of their very own Layer 1 blockchain, which could happen within this year. So, of course, this will be the main event for Ondo going forward, as they can finally bring back home their token, make it native, and issue directly all of their RWAs on Ondo chain and make it a thriving Layer 1 where RWAs can thrive on and other external parties can come and build on top. And that's exactly why they announced the Catalyst Fund, or Ondo Catalyst, which is a 250 million fund dedicated to builders that build on top of the Ondo chain once it's live, to build out core financial applications like lending and borrowing, other DeFi protocols that natively tap into the liquidity on Ondo chain, developer platforms or custody offerings, compliance and identity services that traditional users can tap into that might be less familiar with Web3. And this fund is also supported by Pantera Capital, one of the most well-known VCs in the crypto space. So yeah, that's very promising. $250 million to bootstrap the Ondo native economy. I'm really curious to see what comes out of that, and that's definitely a lot of money that should not be underestimated. Another key milestone going forward on the Ondo roadmap will be the multi-chain rollout of Ondo global markets. As of now, it's only available on Ethereum, but soon it will expand across ecosystems and be available on Solana, Ethereum, and on the Ondo chain itself, which can create huge synergies and also open up new DeFi primitives like cross-chain lending and borrowing, probably the launch of perps, and much more. And the final milestone on their roadmap that I think will be key is the tokenization of new RWAs beyond stocks and bonds, which could include like commodities such as gold, or leaning into the tokenization of real estate as well as private equity or private credit, which are just enormous markets. So as you see, there is lots to be excited about. Cool. I hope you're still with me. That has been a lot of content to digest, so therefore let's sum it up. So what are the good points that are speaking for Ondo? First of all, institutional credibility and their very strong brand. Ondo is well known across TradFi folks, and they have established this strong brand which is super aligned with the Web3 world, but also the traditional finance and Wall Street, and they basically have this first mover advantage of being the first credible chain that is tapping into tokenization of real world assets and especially stocks. Second, they already have a very solid revenue generating mechanism, as we've seen, but as more and more financial products are moving on-chain, they're just tapping into this massive growth market, which just opens up humongous opportunities to scale their yearly revenues into the billions. Then furthermore, they have a very strong technical team, especially now with the acquisition of Strangelove led by Jack Samplin, and the broker-dealer license they obtained by acquiring Oasis Labs. Another point that shouldn't be underestimated is their close ties to the US government, to TradFi players like Goldman Sachs or also BlackRock, and also their close relationship to the SEC and other regulators. Then another point which is very unique in Ondo's case is the full stack integration with the Ondo chain. As they own their own layer 1 chain, they control the entire stack, like starting off at the very base layer with their validator set. They're in full control of the consensus mechanism, the way the blocks are ordered and consensus is generated, all the way up to the execution layer. So I really think that the rise of app chains will benefit Ondo, as they can vertically internalize and integrate the entire stack and have control over it, which other protocols that are just building on top of Solana are not able to do. And the final point is their diversified product suite. As we've seen, not all of their products might succeed. Probably their treasury funds face harsh competition, or their stablecoins are not succeeding, but then they still have the Ondo Global Markets product, which alone could achieve billions in revenue. And at the flip side, what are the main challenges for Ondo Finance going forward? Obviously, there are those big token unlocks looming over the protocol that will go on until 2028. Then, as we said, a market which has so much growth opportunity, of course, also has a lot of competition, especially in the RWA space. So yeah, lots of competitors to compete with. Third, there is, of course, the execution risk of Ondo chain. The chain is not live yet, it's on testnet. And yeah, it will not be super easy and straightforward to just bootstrap the ecosystem there to bridge over new liquidity and just create this vibrant ecosystem around it. But the 250 million Catalyst Fund will definitely help with that. And then there are the unproven validator economics with zero inflation and users being able to stake their real generating RWAs to validators. It's definitely a very innovative approach, but it's unproven. So let's see how this pans out in the end. And number 5, which is a more general concern, is the regulatory uncertainty. You never know if the SEC might change their mind, change the rules regarding tokenized securities and laws. And in 3 or 4 years, as new elections come up, there can always be a reversal of the rules, and as a less crypto-friendly government moves into power. So Seb, what is your personal future outlook, and how do you judge Ondo as an investment opportunity. So I personally think that Ondo's success will hinge on their ability to turn their first mover advantage in the RWA space into a sustainable business model by bridging TradFi and DeFi while maintaining trust on both sides, which will not be super easy, but if they manage to do so, then Ondo could really become the leading blockchain for all things RWA. And of course, the launch of Ondo Chain itself will be of paramount importance for the success of Ondo. So for now, I will stay sidelined as Ondo is already priced like not super high, but neither low, so that it's a bargain with a FTV of roughly 9 billion. I will wait and closely observe how their chain launch goes, and especially how their revenue numbers will ramp up over time as they can tokenize more RWAs. And then on a second point, I will be able to evaluate whether an investment makes sense. But I'm definitely excited about Ondo, and I will keep a very close look at all the developments that are going on there, and super eager to make more tutorials the moment their chain goes live and dive with you into on-chain stock purchases and how this all works. So that's it for today's presentation. I really hope you found some value in it and that I was able to outline Ondo's core products, what Ondo Finance is, their revenue potential, and what lies ahead for Ondo Finance. And if you enjoyed this content, please consider giving us a like and follow us for more tokenomic deep dives. And if you'd like to have early access to these tokenomic deep dives and have a private conversation with me, posing me questions, hey, what do you think about this and that, then please feel free to join 𝗬𝗶𝗺𝗀+, our so-called crypto safety zone, which is a community of passionate DeFi users and NFT lovers where we discuss promising projects like Ondo, take a closer look at their tokenomics, and where we generally are on this journey to discover the magnificent seven of crypto, protocols and chains with real product market fit, genuine users, and the capability to generate lots of revenue for the token itself and its token holders. So we're trying to identify those players and those chains that soon might be multi-trillion protocols. All right, that's everything for today. I hope you like this, and see you around the next time. 𝗬𝗵𝘁 out.